Hello, I hope you're having a great day here. We are heading into some Duskmourn sealed as a part of the Arena Open. This is going to be a slightly different video format than what I've already uploaded. I had recorded this earlier. I've got a bit of a cold right now, so I just did some building and got some games in without the audio on and voicing over now. So I started out with the pool. Opened some solid rares in blue and white, and so started with green-white there just to see if that looked like it had a better curve on it, and then laid out blue-white as well, kind of noting I had solid removal across the board, was a little light in early game action, and so had an unstoppable slasher. My black was otherwise shallow, and tried adding that into both configurations to see what looked right, and ultimately ended up landing on the blue-white deck because it felt like it had more power, and splashed the unstoppable slasher into that. I think I was relatively happy with this configuration here. Again, it was a little slow, so I was worried about getting run over by more aggressive decks, or at least more aggressive starts, but it felt like it offered me the best power in my pool. So heading into match one, feeling not too bad about the opens I had. Can't complain, didn't open any ley lines or anything like that. So game one, solid start. I have all my colors. I've got Slasher and Overlord of Flood Pits. Early turns, nothing too unusual happens there, but I think here my opponent gets a little aggressive, attacking with the Cryptid Inspector into my Slasher, because I'm fine enough trading my Slasher for an Inspector plus another piece of removal, but they then proceed to go under the skin as their follow-up play. And I note here that they've been a creature, so I'm suspect that the 2/2 there is likely something more powerful than that House Cartographer. So here, I follow that up with just getting aggressive with this Glimmer, and then deciding to scream that 2/2 so they can't flip it into anything more powerful. Noting here that I'm waiting to get my second blue source so that I can cast my Overlord of the Flood Pits. They decide to just try and go wide on board, manifesting again, playing another Flesh Burrower, and they're left with one card in hand. So at this point, I'm feeling good if I can get another blue source, or in this case I draw my Ghost Vacuum, and I can just start eating up all the creatures that are hitting their yard. They decide to make an attack here. I'm okay with this because I figure I'm winning the late game with Ghost Vacuum and Overlord of the Flood Pits, and so I offer trades for both of their creatures, knowing that I can just start getting stuff back with the Ghost Vacuum eventually. So happy enough with these trades, and then my Slasher is going to untap the following turn as well, and I can start putting some more pressure on with that. I think here I made a slight misplay. I skipped over this, but I think I should have equipped the Windbreaker on the Slasher to put in pressure in the air. They did end up having a Key Bearer, but then they follow up with a Mind Skinner here, and I've now got to find an answer to that card ASAP. Thankfully, what I do notice with the Ghost Vacuum in the following turn, it's after they've attacked and milled, they actually end up milling Fear of Immobility there. And so I can buy myself one more turn by returning the Fear of Immobility with the Ghost Vacuum, tapping down the Mind Skinner, and then hoping for another answer off the top. You can see here I actually did have Split Up, but decided to slow play it with the stun counter on the Mind Skinner instead, hoping that I can maybe 2-for-1 them in some way. I will note after this, here I think I make a slight misplay, forgetting that it's any creature combat damage that will mill instead of only Mind Skinner, and so I end up taking a hit from a 2/2 and a 1/1 here, thinking that I'm just taking 3 damage versus the milling 3, which is actually relevant considering they've got a Skull Crab. So I probably should have chump blocked the 2/2 there just to save myself 2 mil. I end up splitting up, getting 3 creatures off the board. And then I think at this point I'm in pretty good shape because I can follow that up with a Fear of Falling. And I'm now staring down a Branch Snapper, but I'm at 17 life. It's more the count of cards in my deck that's concerning than it is the Branch Snapper. So I'm anticipating that I just can't play this Overlord anymore this game. So the opponent now, I think, draws probably the best card in their deck, which is the Dissection Tools. They end up equipping that onto the Branch Snapper, getting in, gaining a bunch of life off of it, and again, now I'm in a tough position because I'm staring down Trample, Death Touch, Lifelinker. So I can't block here. I'm forced to take the 9, go down to 8. Again, need to find an answer for it in some fashion, and manage to top deck a Sheltered by Ghosts. And so at that point, Sheltered by Ghosts, they play one more creature. Fear of Falling gets it out of the way for our Flyers, and that is game 1. So I think a few little interesting lines in there. I think some slight misplays from our opponent, but I think relatively smooth and showed the power of our cards that we had opened. So game 2 didn't go as smoothly. So this one, I can't keep my 7 here, so I end up mulling to 6 with, I'd say, a fine 6. I've got early play. I can go into Impending on the Overlord, but they just go Gremlin King to Enduring Innocence, draw cards, make a wide board. I try to keep up with playing the Overlord into a Friendly Ghost for blocker, but they just kill my blockers and now start pressuring my life total. I do draw Sheltered by Ghosts, but honestly, I think it was too little too late anyways here, but my only line that I see is Sheltered by Ghosts, get the Windbreaker down, but they end up having the answer for the Sheltered in an exercise. They just get back to Enduring Innocence, they make more creatures. At this point, the board is just too wide for me to deal with, so I end up taking one more hit, but I can't deal with this board without my split up, and so we move on to the next game. Moving on to game 3 here. I'd say our hand looks fine. We're obviously missing a color, but we've got early aggression in a Survivor, a Sheltered by Ghost, end up finding another Survivor, and an Orphans of the Wheat. And so I offer the trade for the first Survivor here, hoping that I can just get enough triggers with the second one to make it large enough that it can't be blocked. And so here we just decide, you know what, I'm going to eat that Cartographer, keep pressuring their life total. Now I think in this turn following is where I make a misplay. They don't do anything. I should have realized something suspect was up here and just attacked with the Orphans of the Wheat and tapped the Survivor, because what I could have done then is if they play anything and block my Orphans, then I can eat a card out of the yard and make the Veteran Survivor large, because it would get +3/+3 and hexproof at that point, and it would probably just win me the game outright. So I think a misplay on my part there that could have cost me the game if I didn't end up drawing well out of this. I thankfully end up drawing a Trapped in the Screen for their Flyer, and then pressure their life total again with the Orphans of the Wheat, and end up drawing a blue source so that I can play my Nico and Tunnel Surveyor. They get to a point now where they have a Megalodon in play, but they're down at 2. I have a Tunnel Surveyor and Nico out. I'm just gonna flicker the Surveyor as another blocker, and then at this point they decide to concede because it's too much value for them to deal with, and they don't have a clean answer to the Nico. So we got 2 wins under our belt, and this hand is looking, honestly, in hindsight, kind of suspect because I didn't have the double white for split up, but I was on the play and figured I could get to Nico, and thankfully I drew a Swamp for the Slasher. I mean, they had the clean answer, and then they proceeded to have another answer for the Nico as well, and so they kind of had the perfect responses here to my plays. Thankfully, I just keep drawing my bomb. I've got the Overlord of the Flood Pits in my hand now, and I'm still looking at those 2 Shard tokens that I can crack for value later. So I'll just run out the Flood Pits here and get some value, replacing the island in my hand with a Glimmer Burst, which is great. And they do have another answer, so they've managed to kill everything. But I've now got an Orphans of the Wheat with a bunch of token generation. And they've got a 4/4 in play now with the Cautious Survivor, but I can tap enough creatures to make this Orphans of the Wheat large enough that it'll trade with their Survivor. You can see here they consider it, but I've actually still got the split up. So either way I'm okay, because if they trade, great, I trade my 2-drop for their 4-drop, and if not, then I'm just going to 2-for-1 them with the split up and the Cautious, killing the Cautious Survivor and the hand that feeds. So that's what I end up doing. I double check because I've misclicked this too many times to count. And so I end up 2-for-1ing there. I've now still got a Trapped in the Screen for their next threat, which ends up being Bashful Beastie. So just Trapped in the Screen that, and then decide to get some attacks in with the Orphans of the Wheat and the Tunnel Surveyor, pushing the Orphans out of range so that they can't trade with it. And again, I've just got double Grand Entryway to follow it up in a Hardened Escort. Plus, I've still got the card draw and those 2 shards sitting back there. So I'm in an excellent position. I know they can still make a 5/5 off of Moldering Gym, which is what they end up doing. But I can just make the Orphan of the Wheat large enough to get out of range of that. So I tap all the necessary creatures, leaving back a 1/1 blocker in case something very strange happens. This also will then let me eat something out of their yard with the Veteran Survivor, and to still have an activation of Nico Shard to surveil and draw cards into more action. So I'm looking like I'm in an excellent position in this game. They do end up having kind of a cute trick here with the Trial of Agony and a Scorching Dragonfire to kill 2 creatures off. And so they end up doing that, but at this point they're down to 6. I've got 2 Elegant Rotundas out, or I've already used 1, but I've got a second Elegant Rotunda. I ended up drawing a Friendly Ghost, and that's just lethal. So we're now 1 win away from getting at least 2,000 gems back out of this. So we're heading into this one feeling good. This hand, questionable from a power level, but I have all my mana, so I'm just looking to draw action. Theirs is not questionable. They have an extremely powerful start with Overlord, getting back the Unstoppable Slasher. I end up playing just a bunch of blockers trying to get in the way of that. They end up ramping and then bouncing that. I'm forced to chump so that I don't take 11 damage. I do top an Unable to Scream to answer the Unstoppable Slasher. But then their follow-up play the next turn is just a Balustrade Worm. So they've gone Overlord of the Bailmerk, Unstoppable Slasher, Balustrade Worm, and I've just drawn a bunch of lands at this point effectively. They even have a Trapped in the Screen so that they can unlock the Slasher again. I take a ton of damage here, down to 4, and at this point, you know, I do draw an Overlord, but they even have the Murder for that. So that ended up being enough to close that out. Unfortunately, 1 win away from surprising here, but I think the 2 losses we had, that blue-white deck, the curve out, we just weren't beating with our deck unless we happen to have split up in our opener, and then the other, we just got totally overrun by their bombs. So unfortunate here, but I will see you all in the next one.